Kidnapping, a devastating criminal insurgency in the Northwest.
These are people who are agnostic. They have no future ambition. They have no conscience.
With kidnapped victims like Leila, a sickle cell patient who spent 29 days in the kidnapper's den, the mental scar will remain with her forever. Her father was also kidnapped alongside.
About 5 of them descended on me with branches of trees and started beating me. At a time I felt as if my shoulder was not on me.
It is a rural insecurity conflict that has cost the lives of many, some injured while others displaced. It has created the response of local vigilante groups teaming up with security agencies to save the community. We traveled to Katsina to talk to kidnapped victims who have lived to tell the tale. I have come to Katsina State to meet a kidnapped victim, Ahmed Abdul Kader, who was kidnapped alongside his sick daughter, Leila Ahmed, with millions to pay as ransom. Abdul Kader, a retired NBC director, and his daughter were kidnapped in his country home in Bakori Housing Unit, Bakori local government headquarters in Katsina State. The story of their kidnap made headlines on several media organizations for days.
Local government area. Ahmed Abdul Kader was a general manager of the Katsina State.
We travel a distance of 182 kilometers from Katsina to meet him and his daughter, among other kidnapped victims, in Bakori. In terms of kidnapping activities in Katsina State, Bakori local government may not necessarily ring a bell. Towns like Jibia, Basari, Safana, Faskari, Sabwa, and Kankara local government area are common in the news. The lack of common border of Bakori to the forest may be an advantage to the community, as kidnappers hardly assess them. This is the Bakori Housing Unit, popularly called Shema Quarters, that was raided, where Abdul Kader and his 16-year-old daughter were snatched.
I was about to lie down when I realized the bed wasn't made. So I came out to ask my wife to make the bed. I found her in the kitchen preparing some last-minute dishes. And I told her to go and make my bed. As I was just standing there, I had my 11-year-old child come rushing through the parlor and shouting, "Kidnappers, kidnappers." Before I could even move, they had already rushed into the parlor and right inside the house to the kitchen. About 3 of them holding rifles, AK-47. So they pointed the rifle at me and said, "Sit down or we'll shoot you."
There were 3 kidnappers who rushed into the house, while others kept an eye on the compound in case of any eventuality.
One held me there, the other one rushed to my wife's room when he saw the other kids and a neighbor trying to hide in her room. Well, one of our neighbors was with us, and when she saw them, she rushed into my wife's bedroom together with my little daughter Fatima and 2 of her children. They tried to hide inside my wife's house. And another one was with Leila. Leila was the one whom we were kidnapped with. She was sitting in the parlor. She was dazed. She couldn't do anything. She didn't move. She was holding her phone and a tap was nearby. So they collected all those and they brought all of us out myself, my wife, the neighbor, my neighbor's wife, and initially they wanted to take all of us out. But when we went outside the house, they decided that only Leila and myself should go. And they told my wife and my neighbor's wife to return to the house.
Several appeal by the father for Leila to be released because of her condition fell on deaf ear.
I told them Leila was sick. She's a sickler. I pleaded with them to go with me and leave Leila alone, but they ignored me. So they took me to the bushes near our houses.
Leila and her father were not sufficient to satisfy their insatiable greed for their target ransom. They needed more people. So the search for more victims continued, breaking into people's houses until they were able to assemble 9 victims.
And meanwhile, here in Bakori, an alarm had been raised. The vigilantes were summoned, and they decided to head off towards a town called Danja, in Danja local government area. They know that if they took us through the bush, we are likely going to come out along that road. They knew the route, so they went there and took positions, the vigilantes. And just before the vigilantes, there was also a roadblock by policemen who were taken from Bakori. So by the time we reached that place, from afar we could see the policemen flashing their torchlights and stopping motorists on the way. The bandits steered us away from that area. We went through the plants, the maize farms and corn. And we were looking at them, but they couldn't see us as we were not putting on lights. So we passed and came out through another section, and that was where the vigilantes were hiding. And immediately they tried to cross the road. The vigilantes started shooting, and they too responded by shooting, and one of the vigilantes, I think, was shot in the leg. And there was pandemonium. Everybody just dispersed. Some lay down, some began to hide inside the maize farms. And I tried to run away at that time, and I saw one of them holding my daughter's hand. So I just stayed put.
An ce sun shigo wajen mararraba to ga munan dai muna kiran mutanen mu dai a haka dai yanzu za a yi communication. Sun shigo wajen karfe 9 da ni aka yi reporting na ji aka kira ni ta waya ga abin da ke faruwa a Bakori, ga su cikin garin Bakori kuma ga su sun shiga gidan wannan sun shiga gidan wajen dai gida 4 suka shiga suka yi attacking. To bayan sa attacking din mutane kafin in zo har sun ɗau mutanen nan sun shiga daji da su sun bi ta gonaki. To mu ko muka zo yan vigilante muka haɗu ana shawarar da za a yi shine muka sha ta kansu suka bi ta baya wasu kuma suka bi ta gaba. To mu da muka bi ta gaba to mu ne wanda muka faɗa musu. To wannan faɗawa da muka yi musu suna kwakwance gashi ana ta ruwan sama sai dai kawai muka ji bindigogi jikinmu har hashi da ta watsowa kabu. Dole mu ma muka kwanta, to muka ci gaba da musaya wuta da su. Mutanen nan dai na nan hannunsu, mu kuma muna matsa musu dai a haka dai har Allah ya ba mu sa'a muka matsa mutanen nan. To Allah dai cikin ikon Allah ya taimake mu wurin kokarin yin hakan ne ma suka harbe ni a kafa. To wurin harbin nan nawa a kafa wajen 11 na dare suka harbe ni nan ne ta buledin jini na ta zuba gashi ana ruwan sama haka aka yi ta yi har gari yawa ina cikin wurin nan na haɗe ba. To Allah ya sa da sauran shan ruwa kuma na zo na tsinci kaina cikin wannan hali. To alhamdulillahi mutane wayanda suka ɗauka Allah ya taimake mu, kusan wajen mutum 9 ne suka je da su amma 7 sun dawo gida, sauran 2 kuma akwai wani babban ma'aikaci, wani ana ce mai boy da diyar shi. To nan dai sai da suka tafi da shi cikin wannan lokaci. To baya da zami ni kaina ban san inda kaina yake ba, ina cikin tabo kwance cikin ruwa, sai dai da safe yan uwana yan bijilanti suka zo suka tafi da ni kaina ban san ma sun kai na asibiti ba.
Habibu Rabi was among the 9 kidnapped victims, a neighbor to Abdul Kader. Luckily, before the vigilante engaged the kidnappers, he tactically escaped.
An jera mu kan labi muna tahiya, to na da yake matsaya an tsaya, ni na tsaya daidai gindin wani tarin abu ga tafasa, duhun tafasa, kawai sai na suka na fada cikin duhun tafasa, sai na kwanta. Ina ta addu'a cikin wannan tafasa, ban motsi ba, ina dai ta addu'a. Can sai na ji an ce ayi gaba, ayi gaba, ayi gaba. Yake nan suka ƙara gaba, ni ina nan cikin kwance, sai na ji an yi gaba an tahi. Na ji ba wanda ya taba ni, ba komi, na tabbatar to insha Allah na sha. Sai da suka tahi suka yi nisa, na tabbatar da sun yi nisa, na ji ban ji motsin wani ba. Shikenan ina hitowa sai na shiga can cikin gona, gindin wata giginya na zanna. Na ƙara huta daga nan sai na hito, na hau wannan labi da muka tayi, sai na yi baya. Ina ta sauri, ina sassarwa, na zo sai na bi, da yake ba zan iya dawowa ta inda muka wuta gindar wannan rahi, ta cikin wannan rahi ba, sai na samu wani labi da ya yamma, sai na yanka na tahi. Ina cikin tahiya kawai sai na gani na bullo hanyar danja wajen jiba. Na hau titi ina ta tahiya he gani nan he anguwa hayin Alhaji. Ina zuwa hayin Alhaji sannan ruwan nan ya tsuge, sai na je wajen wani mai shago na shiga nan na zanna.
Greed could not allow the kidnappers to proceed to the den with 2 captives. They wanted more to complement their lost victims, and going back to Bakuri was asking for trouble.
When they said since we were too few, they needed more people, so they decided to block the road again and take some hostages. When the vehicles came, they just opened fire on them. And coincidentally, it happened that it was a convoy of soldiers who were going to Faskari, where they had a base there to fight the bandits. So they shot at the Toyota Hilux holding some of the soldiers, and the soldiers responded by firing back. And according to them, when they rushed and met us, the convoy broke into 2. Half of the convoy made U-turn and returned towards Dalia, and the other one just went on driving towards Funtua. The rest came rushing and caught up with us. They were running like hell. Some had lost their shoes, some had injured one of them had injured his feet. They abandoned the ambush and went on with the journey.
When they arrived at the detention camp, it was nothing better than a nomadic structure with no means of comfort. The kidnappers never contacted the relative of their victims for 2 days, and discovering that Abdul Kader was a journalist made it interesting.
Since that day, they nicknamed me Danjarida. A journalist in Hausa is Danjarida. So I became very popular with them because they liked journalists. They said, that is very good, very good. We want you to go and tell the government about our feelings, what is done to us, the wrongs that are done to us. Please convey our message to the government. Throughout that period, they were just inviting neighboring people from other camps where they are also holding other hostages. They will come and sit down in front of me and say, "Are you really Dan Jarida? Are you really a journalist?" I said, "Yes." One of them said, "I have never in my life seen a journalist. This is my first time of seeing a journalist. I only hear you on the radio." The preferential treatment I was given was that when it comes to eating, I was separated from the rest of the crowd. There was a big bowl where the food is put and everybody puts his hand to eat. But they brought out one small burnt pot, which they gave me one with that Alhaji Adamu. They said we are the elderly people in that camp, so Dan Jarida and Alhaji shouldn't eat with these animals. That was what they were saying. So they put the food for us, the two of us. They even added if we were not satisfied, but the food was so horrible you can't eat and get satisfied with it. It was just rice, palm oil, salt and Maggi. I had to eat to survive, but I never filled my stomach.
When the relatives were eventually contacted, a high amount of ransom was asked to be paid.
After about 3 days, negotiations started, and we assigned his first male child, Nasib, and Ibrahim Barrow to be contacting the Tilias with them. And negotiating went on for 4 days, and then after the 4 days, an agreement was reached on the amount to be given to them. And then we sought for the money the family collected, and an affluent member of the family, I will not tell you or disclose the amount, filled the gap. And then we sorted out the money. After sorting it out, we put in a sack, and then we decided the following day to go.
While the negotiation was going on, the kidnappers had some sympathy for Abdelkader and Leila. But the relationship soon became sour when he disclosed that he did not have enough money to pay for high ransom.
Actually, that was the only time I suffered. They asked how much I was willing to pay. So I pleaded with them that I had retired, I had no money, I was not working now. So all I could give them was $500,000. And it was as if I had poured fire on them. They just took me outside, and about 5 of them descended on me with branches of trees and started beating me. Beating me. At a time I felt as if my shoulder was not on me. I was shouting and they were beating me for about some minutes. I just didn't know where I was. I very nearly fell. And I remember I was blindfolded. I couldn't see. Then suddenly it stopped. Maybe they thought they were going to kill me or something. And they didn't want to do that. So they stopped and took me back and said, if I dare mention that amount again, they were going to kill me.
I thought we will not come back. Because how we suffer, I thought we are going to die here. I suffer a lot because I am a sickle cell and my legs were paining me. I can't even walk. Then when we reached there, they bought medicine for me and my injections that I used to.
Only myself and the person, the cyclist who took me were there. When we reached about 20 kilometers after joining the junction of the road that started from Zaria to Kuyelo, so we saw 2 people, all of them 2 in one machine. And then they stopped us. They said, are you the one we are negotiating regarding the road? I say, yes. Then we stopped. The two of them stopped on the middle of the road and are on this. And then they asked the person who was taking me to go back. I was holding the money. They started interrogating. The first question they asked me was, what was my relationship with the person? So I told him, I am his next door neighbor. All right, then the next question is, what imposed the decision for you to come? I say, in the spirit of good neighborhood. And then the next question, why do you so dare took that decision? I said, well, considering the incidences, considering circumstances, and in the spirit of good neighborhood, and nobody was there to do this, I volunteered to do it in the spirit of good neighborhood. At that point in time, when we were busy discussing, then I saw him escorting my brother to join us. When I saw him, that was when I really became upset and disturbed, and I almost shed tears. He became dark, disturbed, upset, like a madman. This is how I see him. That's why I lost my religion. Incidentally, when he approached us, when they are near us, they advanced toward him and said, what's your relationship with this man? I quickly intervened and responded that I told you, I am his next door neighbor.
The kidnappers, on the other hand, had given them the impression that Leila and her father were going to be released on the same day. But it was not meant to be. The kidnappers had other plans.
So after asking me to recognize him, they then said, okay, come. One of them took me aside from the rest of them and said, how much do we agree? Now, how much was brought here? I said, you haven't told me. So he told me and said, what is the balance now? And I told him the balance. He said, okay, that is the balance we are releasing you now to go and bring if you want to see your daughter alive again. Otherwise, we'll just marry her off to one of our Fulani boys who need a wife.
Bayan ya yi kwana biyu da tahowa aka canza min waje. Daga inda aka aje mu tare da babana suka ɗauke ni, daga nan suka canza min waje. Na je can ma na yi kwana biyu. A can ne na haɗu da wata Hadiza. Ita ma nan Danja aka ɗauke ta.
When Abdelkader arrived home without Leila, it was a mixed feeling for the family members. Leila's mother especially thought the worst had happened to her daughter.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Na ji farin ciki, amma kuma na ji bakin ciki sosai. Saboda abin ya min ciwo, ya min kunci. A ɗauka ta ma ni ta rasu. Kawai ana ɓoye mani saboda yanayin ciwon nata.
Expectation was high, but when they saw that I was the only one released, there was just sadness, and people just started crying, and I just felt too bad for my wife because she looked as if she was going to collapse when she saw me without her daughter.
The kidnappers insisted that another ransom needed to be paid to secure the release of Leila. Leila had to spend another 19 days before a negotiation was reached.
When I was released, my cousin volunteered. But when it came to taking Leila's ransom, he was sick at the time. So it was difficult to ask anybody else again to volunteer. So I did it myself.
While all these were going on, members of the family relied very little on security agents.
To be honest with you, people have lost confidence in the government. It happened to many families. Nothing yielded. So, and when you have to look at the person you are dealing with. These are people who have no stake. They have no future ambition. They have no conscience. They have no rationality. Any license they do, they can easily take somebody off. Like when they say they are going to kill him, what do they lose? They have nothing to lose but everything to gain. So we decided our concern and our effort is just to really see him, free himself and his daughter. If you go to this government, anything can happen. It has not happened, and it has not yielded any result.
Researchers, historians and journalists have highlighted several factors that have led to the deteriorating state of kidnapping in the Northwest. The failure of the criminal justice system, environmental degradation, the lack of political will to address cattle rustling and farmers' harvest clashes, to mention but a few, are some of the factors. For those who have had first-hand contact with the kidnappers, they cited the discontinuation of government policies channeled towards the nomads as another factor.
They say, look at what is going on regarding the road development, regarding education, regarding health, regarding all other aspects. I say, all right, the government is doing its best, but then I started saying either the government is not fair, and told us to identify with them, to identify with their aspirations. And we went on discussing about this. And then from there, then they started saying what motivated them to go into this kind of thing. They said there was a high level of underdevelopment. They are neglected, no provision of education. The government initially started giving them nomadic education, but during the era of during Obasanjo's regime, then the program stopped. Then they have no access to education. They have no access to health facilities. They have no access to pipe-borne water. They have no access to any form of amenity. Is that government? Is the government fair? I say not fair, but it's something that cross. But they say that the least developed person. They were showing me to talk more about them, but as they were asking me questions, I was also building question to them. I say, you, the way I see you, you are hitting a wrong target. Your problem with the government. Why do you go and get innocent people like that? People who are peasant, who are less privileged, who are struggling for life, who do not enjoy government like you, government facilities like you, and then they say they wanted to send a message.
The harm that various communities have experienced collectively and individually as a result of this conflict in the Northwest is worrisome. Some have completely lost their means of survival, all to paying ransom. Some have lost their life, while many are living in fear. The NBC director and Leila could have been saved because they could afford to pay ransom. But how about those who could not afford to pay any ransom? If the problem is allowed to continue, the society may witness a severe breakdown of law and order.